Om Abhyayantu Mamangani Vakkanashtakshushrotra Athabalamidryani Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakvayam Ma Brahma Nirakaro Anirakarnameyastu Anirakarnameyastu Tadatmani Nivateya Upanishadsu Dharma Stay Maisantu Te Maisantu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all my limbs grow strong, so also my breath, my speech, eyes, ears, and all my organs. All is Brahman, of which the Upanishads speak. May I never turn away from Brahman. May Brahman never turn me away. Let there be no turning away, at least on my side. I am engaged in the study of the self. The Upanishads speak of qualities that one must possess to succeed in such a study. May I acquire those qualities. Peace, peace, peace. So we'll read the verses we've covered so far. It says, disciple, by whose will is the mind drawn towards the subject, who makes the vital breath the first sign of life function, ordained by whom do people utter words, which God directs the eye, the ear, and other organs. Teacher, it, Brahman, is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, the breath of the breath, and the eye of the eye. Therefore the wise, giving up the notion that they are associated with these organs, depart from this world and become immortal. The eye does not reach there, nor does speech, nor the mind. We do not know how a teacher can possibly explain it to a disciple. We do not know. That Brahman is different from all known familiar objects. It is beyond even unknown objects. This is what we heard from the ancient ones, who explained it to us. Know that alone to be Brahman, which cannot be described by speech, and by which speech becomes a vehicle of expression. Yet Brahman is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which the mind cannot comprehend, and which they say makes the mind function. It is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot see by the eyes, and by the power which the eyes see. It is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot hear by the organ of hearing, and by the power of which the ear can hear. It is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot make an object of smelling by the nose, and by the power of which the nose smells or functions. It is not this sense world that people worship. So this is the first section, which we finished earlier. And basically, as we mentioned before, it's called Kena Upanishad, because it starts with the word Kena, which means by whom. And this is the main theme, and the section is by whom do the eyes function, do the ears function, so forth, and the answer is Brahman. Then now comes section 2. It says, if you think, I know Brahman well, then it is for certain that you know little about the nature of Brahman. You know only its manifestation in the individual self, the gods, and the phenomenal world. Therefore, Brahman should still be thoroughly investigated. Disciple, I think it is known. I do not think that I know it well, neither is it that I do not know, nor can I say I know. He who among us disciples knows the meaning of the expression, Neither is it that I do not know, nor can I say I know. He knows that Brahman. He who says he does not know Brahman knows it. He who says he knows does not know. It is known to those who say they do not know it. It is not known to those who say they know it. So these are the verses we had covered before. And so in the second section then, it says basically that Brahman cannot be known in the sense that we normally know things. And this is kind of a philosophical point, but a very definite point, is that normally when we say I know something, there's three things involved. I say I know that chair. Well, there's the chair, the object of the knowledge, there's me, the knower, and then there's the knowing. So normally in all of our experience, we experience things like the chair. The senses perceive it. The eyes perceive it. They say, okay, that form is there, the color and so forth is there. Then the mind says, I know that. I know that's the chair. And so then the sense of I know comes in. But now, behind both the body, the senses, and the mind, there is that consciousness which is there. And is that consciousness which is the true kind of knower or perceiver. And so, when you're speaking of Brahman, when you're speaking of the knowledge of Brahman, you can't know Brahman the way you know other things. Through the senses, we can see things, experience things, and get a certain type of knowledge through the mind. We can both understand things and we can understand kind of abstract ideas, like algebra and things like this. But behind the mind, deeper than the mind, is Brahman. And it can't be perceived because it's kind of the perceiver is behind everything. And so the only way you can actually know Brahman is through the direct experience, the direct consciousness of Brahman. You can know ideas and concepts about Brahman. You can become a great scholar in the scriptures and so forth. You can write books about Brahman. But all you're doing is talking about ideas about Brahman. And an idea is something different than the thing itself. Like even in our normal experience, we tend to take what we think we know, we tend to take that for granted and say, okay, this is true, this is reality. But actually, we don't know. When we say we know another person, what we actually know is what they look like, and then some sense of how they behave, what their personality is, and on that we form an idea about that person, which is largely a reflection of who we are, of what our state of mind and consciousness is, that we then kind of project on the other person and say, well, he's like this. If the other person knew what we actually thought about them, they'd probably say, oh, I'm not like that at all. You don't know me at all. And this, even people who are very close, they really don't know each other at all because they don't know that inner consciousness, which is what the person really is. And so, in this, that we mentioned in the previous class, even this obvious thing, okay, this chair is real, this chair is there, I know that chair. As we mentioned, that Swami Vivekananda, I said, that, okay, you've got something out there, and call it X. He said, now what actually happens is that something, whatever it is say, amidst photons or however, that come to the eye, they strike the retina, behind that they strike the optic nerve, and then it goes to, I think it's the visual cortex in the brain. what we actually experience is not that thing out there, but a reaction that takes place in the brain. And I mentioned it's like the scientists at Fermilab. They have their cyclotron and things, and they have their subatomic collisions and particles and things. They don't actually see what's going on, but they have machines there that register the different collisions and things that take place, that can sense those data. Those machines then send it to a computer. And then the computer analyzes it, puts it together, and what the scientists actually see is the printout that comes from the computer. Now, we're pretty much the same way. We have a certain set of equipment, eyes and ears and so forth, and we look at and we get impressions that are fairly consistent with what other people see. However, if we were colorblind, or if we were very poor, had very poor eyesight or something, we wouldn't be seeing things that other people see. Same way, if we were a dog, we would be hearing things that we are totally unaware of now. So like that, to some extent, we're limited by our sensory equipment, and a lot of science, technology, has been involved in kind of expanding the range of our equipment. Before the invention of the microscope, nobody had any idea about germs. Nobody realized there were microbes and germs and things like that. It was totally unknown. And also before the invention of the telescope, most of this vast universe was completely unknown. We were just completely unaware of it because we didn't have the equipment. And so a lot of what's going on, and they've now got electron microscopes that can get actually down to almost seeing the individual atoms and molecules. But so a lot of science of our quest for knowledge has gone into expanding the power of our basic equipment, our basic instruments. But in general, we all have kind of a common agreement of what we experience. But then you take that data, which is coming through your sensing apparatus, and then you filter it through your computer, through your mind. And if the sensing equipment is defective, or if the computer is defective, you'll get defective results. And this is our problem, is most people have buggy computers. We have buggy software. We see things and then we filter it through our particular mind and come up with a idea of reality that's more a sense of what our state of mind and consciousness is than what is actually there. And then we go through life and saying this is good and this is bad, and in all kinds of different reactions to things, all kinds of judgments, that this person's good, this person's bad, and so forth. And it's mostly because of our software, our mind, it distorts things. It distorts the reality. In Zen, they have a great thing called sachas. Considered a very important part of the Zen practice is being able to see things simply as they are, without saying this is good or this is bad. This is something that I like, this is something that I don't like. You just try to experience things simply as they are, without this kind of distorting and shaping the experiences by the mind. And then you begin to get into a much clearer kind of a vision of things. Our fundamental, most biggest distortion that we tend to make is that we're viewing everything, all of our experiences, the whole entire universe, we're tending to experience from the standpoint of our particular ego, our particular individuality. And we tend to then look at this whole vast universe in terms of what is it doing for me? Am I happy with it? Am I not happy with it? Am I succeeding? Am I getting what I want? All this there's this vast universe, there's 6 billion people in the world, there's trillions of stars and things, and all we can think about is what somebody said to me at work, or what's for supper, or what's going to be on TV tonight. And I think our whole consciousness tends to be narrowed down to one small point of view, and then we evaluate everything in relation to that, whether it's something pleasant that I like or something unpleasant that I don't like. Now, the idea behind suchness and a basic spiritual principle is that you stop judging things. You stop saying this is good or this is bad, I like this, I don't like that, and you just experience it. Just say, okay, it is what it is. You look at a chair, and you don't say, oh, I want to have that chair, or I don't like that chair. You just let the chair be itself. And as you begin to do this, then instead of the world being full of like good and bad, and like it dislike, it starts to just be. It starts to just kind of be what it is. And gradually you're moving away from this very personal, individualized attitude, approach towards life, into the fundamental kind of beingness or reality of things. For example, an example of this idea of suchness. One time, Swami Brahmarupananda, we went to somebody's house, and he gave us a talk and things, and they served us some coffee. Well, one of the guests, I made the coffee, and she accidentally put salt into it instead of sugar. Now, natural reaction is, well, that's awful. But suchness says, well, it is what it is. It's just, there's neither good nor bad. It's just salty coffee. So like that, when you begin to view your experiences, not so much, oh, I don't like that or I do like that, and you just let it be, then you see kind of the transformation that begins to take place. For example, if you realize that the person you can't stand, the person you don't like at all, is probably somebody else's best friend. So you're looking at this person, you're seeing nothing but bad, but yet somebody else thinks, oh, he's a great guy. Or at least his mother, but somebody will like him. And so like that, when you remove this sense of judgment, of liking and disliking, of labeling everything, this is good and this is bad, then you start to see things more simply as they are. And as you begin to see things simply as they are, you're starting to get more into the actual reality, the isness of things, rather than the picture created by your mind. And so, and this slowly, and this is what gradually you're trying to move into, is this underlying reality of things. You remember Swami Vivekananda's statement that for the good person, this world is heaven. For the bad person, the same world is hell. But for the yogi, this world is good as God himself. So when our mind, when our inner consciousness is good, we tend to see a good, happy world. And we were happy, and so we tend to see our life experience as a happy thing. When a person is bad, and very bad, then he tends to see other people as bad too. And he tends to see everything is distrustful and so forth. But deeper than being either good or bad is the yogi who begins to see the actual reality of things. And this is not something that humanly we call good or bad. It's something of seeing the underlying thing that's there, and gradually becoming aware that even though I see this scene before me, I see people that may be considered good or bad, actually it's divinity itself is there. And this is what they're talking about by Brahman, is that it's Brahman underlying the experiences, underlying what we see, what we hear, what we taste, and so forth. Underlying that is the reality of things, which is Brahman, and which cannot be known in the same way that we know an object. In the same way, we said that you can know ideas about Brahman, concepts about Brahman, you can read books about Brahman, but to actually know Brahman, you have to be Brahman. Just to truly know someone, you have to be that person. You know, these Native American statement, walk about in his shoes. You know, we look at a person and say, oh, he's good or bad, but if you try to put yourself into his consciousness, then you can truly begin to kind of understand it. So the student says that I can't say that I know Brahman, but at the same time, it's not that I don't know Brahman. And these verses, when they say I don't know Brahman, it doesn't mean that you don't know Brahman. You know, a lot of people will tell you I don't know Brahman, and they don't. They don't have any idea. But the person who actually knows them, they'll say it's something that just can't be described or stated. And we mentioned before how this was a problem that all the mystics have kind of faced, is that they're experiencing a reality that nobody else has experienced, and something that is just inexplainable to anybody who hasn't had an experience. I say it's like trying to explain the color orange to somebody who's blind from birth. You can say it's a warm color, this and that, but nothing you can say really can make a person who's never had sight, understand what you're talking about. In the same way, the mystics and the saints and so on, what they say can only be sort of understood by somebody who's been on the same path, who's had the same experiences. Then they'll appreciate, basic idea about a spiritual person or spiritual teacher is that the more you grow, the more you understand the teaching. You can look at a great teacher like Sri Ramakrishna or Jesus Christ or something else, and then you'll have a little bit of understanding of it. But if you're kind of developing spiritually, trying to grow spiritually, then as you grow, you appreciate more and more what the person is. It's kind of like in children. Children, when they're small, they're growing up, they don't really understand adults at all. And then when they get to be teenagers, they think, oh, I know everything, adults don't know anything. Then later on, they get a little older, they become adults themselves, they have their own children, then they realize, oh, my parents had so much wisdom, so much, many of the things they told me actually was very good advice that I didn't, that I totally ignored at the time. So like that, as we grow and our consciousness develop, then you appreciate more and more of kind of the greatness of the different spiritual teachers. So now we come we're in section 2, and we come now to verse 4. Pratibodh aviditam vatam amritatvam hi vindate. Atmana vindate virayam vidyaya vidyate mritam. So when one attains Brahman, at all levels of one's consciousness, one attains true knowledge, and one goes beyond life and death. By self-knowledge, one attains strength. By true knowledge, one attains immortality. So as a thread runs through the jewels in the necklace, so also Brahman, as Chaitanya, intelligence, is present through all of our mental experiences. For instance, there is a lamp burning in a room. There may be many objects in the room, but all of these objects are illuminated by the lamp. Similarly, the mind in all of its functions is illumined by Brahman or Chaitanya. If Brahman were not present, we would not experience anything, because our senses cannot function independently. Yet Brahman is always the same, unchanging. It is behind all of our mental experiences, yet is not affected by them. So when we realize this Brahman, we attain immortality. The idea is that our experiences may vary, but our own self is always the same. The example of a movie screen is very apt here. The screen is constant. It is always there. And so many different pictures are projected on the screen, but the screen is unaffected. Similarly, the Atman, the self, watches this world, the sense experience called life, but it is not affected in the least. The Atman is always the same. It is the Sakshi, the witness. So the Upanishad also says that when you know your true nature, yourself, you attain virya, strength. Generally, we are at the mercy of our experiences. Our happiness and misery depend upon our good and bad experiences. This is because we identify ourselves with our sense experiences. But in reality, we are unaffected by such experiences. We are always the same. When we know this, when we know our real nature, we become strong. When we realize that sense experiences have nothing to do with ourselves, that we are simply the witness, observing things around us as they happen, then we know our own strength. Self-knowledge means knowing that the individual self, Jivatma, and the cosmic self, Paramatma, are one and the same. The Paramatma has no birth and therefore no death. It is immortal. Thus, when we attain self-knowledge, we also attain immortality, Amrita. So just as a thread runs through the jewels in a necklace, so also Brahman, or this consciousness, runs through everything. And the idea behind it, and this is a basic idea of Vedanta, of Advaita Vedanta, is simply that you have a almost infinite number of different bodies. Different bodies and different minds. And each body and each mind has a sense that this is me. And it has a sense also generally that this is me and this is you. And this is she and this is he. And a sense that my particular body and mind is something different than you. But when you go deeper, when you attain self-knowledge, the knowledge of what's actually there, of who's actually there, what you discover then is that there's only one consciousness. And it's that consciousness alone which is looking through every single set of eyes, every single body, every single individual. There's just the one and same consciousness. Now, as long as we're identified, completely feeling that I'm this body, I'm this mind, I'm this particular individual, then we have this sense of separation, of diversity, that I'm one thing, you're something else. And then we'll say, I want this piece of pie, and so I shove you out of the way, and I get the piece of pie, because it's for me. But then when a person has attained the consciousness, the awareness, that what I am, who I am, is actually the same consciousness, same Chaitanya, the same consciousness as the consciousness in the other person, then all this sense of diversity, this sense of conflict, of violence, and all these things, then this ends because you realize, it's one self here. It's only one being here. And it's expressing through all the forms, and then instead of living in a jungle where you're competing and struggling with everybody else, you're now seeing the underlying harmony and oneness of things, and you're part of that oneness. And then you find yourself kind of truly fulfilled, and then what you express becomes an expression of that infinite universal consciousness. And this is what the kind of spiritual path is trying to get back to the awareness of that consciousness, back to being one with it. And this is kind of the goal. And it starts, first of all, fundamentally, with just realizing that, okay, a body is there, the body is having certain experiences, a mind is there, the mind is having certain experiences. But I am neither of those things. I am this witness, the Sakshi, this witness. I'm just this consciousness which is aware. When I look out and say, I see something, and then I grab hold of that experience, and then I say, oh, I like that person. Or no, I don't like that, I don't like that person. Then we're caught up in the experiences. We're identified with the experiences, and then our happiness, our unhappiness, it depends upon the nature of the experience. And it's something out of our control. And so then we find ourselves kind of going up and down and through all different experiences. But when we become more detached, when we remember that actually I'm Sakshi, that even though this body is here, it's not me. You know, I'm just a witness of that body. Then, as you do this, you start the bad things in life, the things that cause you unhappiness, misery, things like that, they don't disturb you as much as they did. But at the same time, though, you don't get the joy and the excitement and enthusiasm of the good things that happen. And this is what makes it difficult. People are happy to say, oh, I'll give up eating cauliflower or something, but then they say they'll give up their favorite dessert is something different. It's much easier to say that the bad things in life, well, it's all an illusion, it's not real. But then when you see the good things, then you're drawn towards it, and then you want to be experiencing it and enjoying it. So this is what makes it very difficult to be, because spiritual is because you're trying to kind of back off from all that and remember that no matter how good the experience is, that it's not me. I'm here, and it's like we mentioned before. It's like a movie. The movie's being shown. You're watching it. You're aware of it. You're enjoying it, but you're seated in the theater. And when you realize that you're totally, actually unaffected, unchanged by what is going on, you're just watching it. And as you mentioned, so the two things happen. One is that your domination by the scenes, by the movie, your sense of being overwhelmed and things by life, that starts to cease. That becomes less and less. Second thing, though, is that gradually become more of who you really are, of what you really are, and ultimately that is back to the awareness that I'm Brahman. That consciousness, that thing within me that's saying this is me, that's actually Brahman. And this then is kind of what you're trying to achieve. Because when you achieve the awareness that I'm Brahman, that I'm one with God, you have the awareness that I'm one with everything. Normally we're looking out and saying, oh, if I could have a better car, or a bigger house, or more money, or this or that, yeah, then that would be really great, and I'd be really happy. But as you move back within, you realize, I don't need anything at all. These are all like children's toys out there. I'm completely happy, I'm completely satisfied. I have infinite power, infinite wisdom, infinite love, everything is right here. And then you don't depend upon anybody or anything because you know that you've got something. It's not just indifference, you're finding something deeper and higher, and then you begin to unfold that divinity, that hidden divinity that's there within each and every individual. That's what we're trying to do in this world, is we're trying to express that divinity. But most of us kind of drop the ball along the way. We get kind of all caught up in things and forget who we are and what we're doing. And so then we don't manifest a whole lot of the divinity, but potentially it's there within each and every individual. And so, and this is what we're trying to do, but it only really works when it becomes actual experience. And this is what the Upanishads, from the Upanishads always emphasize, is that when you talk about God, you're not talking about an abstract reality. You're not talking about some judge who's going to judge you and send you to heaven or hell. I think you're talking about a reality that you can consciously experience, and that this is the goal. Just hearing the teaching and saying, "Oh yes, I believe in that, amen," but that's not what'll do it. What'll do it is that when even a little, and what they say is that even the tiniest little bit of this, if it becomes actual experience, transforms your life. So throughout all the beings in this universe, there's really only the one consciousness there. And I said, normally our sense of identity is coming primarily from the body, and is coming through the personality, through the mind and our experiences, our memories, our likes, dislikes, all these things that make up our personality. So I remember, as we have a strong sense of identity with the body. It's like if somebody, let's say somebody gets their car scratched. Well, you look at it, oh, okay, too bad. Or somebody gets a little fender accident. But if your car gets scratched, then you get upset, particularly if it's brand new. I remember when I was with Swami, I forget his name. Anyway, but we were there. We came to a gas station, and the guy who was driving our car, he was too short to reach the brake pedal, and so he banged into the back of this guy, who was just bringing his car home from the car dealer to show his wife. And so, anyway, so like that. So what happens to your car? You get really upset because you say, "This is my car." And likewise, when something happens to this particular body, if somebody else breaks their leg, you say, "Oh, too bad." But when it happens to you, then you're in misery. And so, like that, because our sense of identity is so strongly centered on both this body and personality, we don't appreciate what we are. But when we realize, for example, I remember we had one of our devotees in Hyde Park. He was a printer, and he said he was reading all this Vedanta and saying, "Okay, I'm not the body, I'm spirit," and this and that. And he said, but then one day his finger got caught in the printing press, and he said all his Vedanta went out the window. All he goes, "My finger's in the printing press." And so, like that, it's very difficult to get rid of this sense of identity with the body. But as I mentioned before, this is one of the most common kind of out-of-body experiences that people talk about, that you read about in this kind of near-death books and things like that. Now, you said the person's on the operating table or something, and suddenly find themselves floating up near the ceiling, and they look down. Now, up to that point, the sense of identity is, I'm alive, I exist because of this body. But now, suddenly looking down, and they're seeing that body, they're laying just as a separate object, like a chair or a piano or something, and it's not them at all. Them is what's up here, kind of looking down at it. And so like that, there are states, there are experiences that go, when you realize, oh, that body is not me at all. One of the, David Hawkins, one of the modern kind of mystics, what about, he said how strange it seemed to me that he had reached a point where he was totally unidentified with the body. And he thought it was so strange that people kept talking to the body like it was him. And he said, but somehow the body functioned, did everything. But he also said when he got into this kind of mystical union, whatever you call it, that people would come, they'd ask him questions, and because the David wasn't there, he said actually what they're doing is they're asking their own self. In other words, they connected with the self through David, and it came back through David. But in other words, it's the one self that's actually one consciousness, actually functioning through all the different bodies, through all the different minds. And as a person becomes aware of that, then he becomes like kind of a transparency or a connection between it and that, and then lives in that consciousness and becomes aware of who or what he really is, and then eventually discovers that what he is ultimately Brahman. So now we come to verse 5. It says, Iha cheda veditata sachamasti na chediha vedi mahati vinasti bhuteshu bhuteshu vichitya diraha tweja smala kadamrita bhavanti. So if one knows the self as Brahman in this very life, one then knows the supreme truth. Without this knowledge, one is doomed to much suffering. But the wise person who knows this truth, that Brahman is in all things and all beings, withdraws from this world and becomes free. The idea here is that it is possible to attain self-knowledge in this life. But it is only possible if you are born as a human being. A human being can think and argue, and can also choose a goal and struggle to reach it. This is not possible for an animal. Thus, as you have been born a human being, if you do not try to attain self-knowledge, it will be a great loss. As this Upanishad says, one will have much suffering. One will continue to be a victim of circumstances, sometimes good and sometimes bad, including birth and death. The interesting point is that we are already immortal. It is not that we are going to be promoted to a new status. We are already Brahman, and therefore immortal. Somehow or other we do not know it. There is a sort of veil that conceals our real nature. The task is to remove this veil. The wise see their own self everywhere, bhuteshu bhuteshu, in all things and beings, men, women, and animals. When one sees all beings in oneself, and oneself in all beings, in other words, when one realizes the unity of existence, one cannot bear any ill feeling towards anyone. It is said that the great Vedantist Ramatirtha used to address the audience at his lectures as myself and ladies and gentlemen present. The idea is that myself, the same self, is everywhere. The speaker and the audience are both the same self. The self is speaking to the self. Only the names and forms vary, and that is all. This sameness, this unity of existence, is what we have to realize. We are all one. The difference is merely in the degree of manifestation. So this is got a couple of interesting points. The first thing, as you mentioned, is that we are already immortal. Now this is a very significant and important thing. In a lot of religions, particularly more fundamentalist religions, lay a great deal of emphasis on damnation and hell and fire and brimstone and all this, so that for many people, religion becomes something of fear. That if you sin, if you do something wrong, then God is going to send you to hell and torture you for all eternity. You're just lost and hopeless. But according to Vedanta, no matter what you do, no matter how terrible you can never lose what you actually are. So that this Atman, this spiritual truth, this realization or salvation in Vedanta is something that's always there. It's not something that you have to acquire, like money in the bank. It's not something that you're missing, that you can lose again, is what you are. The only thing is you can forget it. And this is our whole problem. It's not that we're not children of God, not that we're not with God, not that we're Brahman, not Brahman, but that we're not aware of it. And since we're not aware of it, for practical purposes, it's almost like it's not there. It doesn't do us, much good. And so this is a very important kind of message. Is that no matter how great a sin, the fact that no matter how great a sinner you are, you're not a sinner. You're a divine child of God. You're a spirit, you're with God. Yeah, that's always. You develop this hallucination, this delusion that you're a sinner, and therefore you do the things you do, and you feel guilt and things, I'm not worthy of God, but none of that is true. No matter what we do, God, Divine Mother has no blame at all. All kind of punishment, if you can say, is in Vedanta is according to the law of karma. Whatever you do, however you think, it tends to bring back certain reactions. So you do good things, and the universe tends to bring back good reactions to you. So you do bad things, and bad reactions come back. God has nothing to do with it. That's not reward or punishment, or God saying, "Well, this is a good person, I bless him. This is a bad person, I send him to hell." It's none of that. It is simply the way this particular universe is kind of built, and it's like a game. You play a game, and this is the rules of the game. And so souls come here, souls which still have that knowledge, I'm immortal, nothing can harm me, and so forth. Then they come down here, they become kind of deluded and forgetful, and then they get in this game, and accordingly, sometimes they're winning the game, getting good karma and good results, sometimes they're losing the game, and so on. But none of that has anything to do with the reality. In reality, they're always spirit, they're always children of God. God doesn't care in the least what they do. It's like the Holy Mother, that she literally couldn't see anybody's fault. She just wasn't aware of it. And it's like children go out and they play cops and robbers. Some of them are cops and some of them are robbers. Well, when they come back home, the mother doesn't say, "Oh, you're a robber, you go away. I'll take you, you were a cop, you're all right." But no, it's just that children, they went out, they played, now they come back home. And this is what is kind of going on. And when we speak of heaven and hell and so forth, we're really speaking of whether we want to be close to God, close to the light, or whether we want to be away from it. For those souls who are kind of drawn towards God, then they're going towards the light. Some souls who want to keep God out, who want to keep God away, they're drawn towards the darkness. Like that, according to the state of consciousness, people are drawn to kind of different levels of existence, different levels of spiritual awareness. But underlying it, no matter what, beyond this whole universe is the presence of Brahman itself. And that presence is the reality. Everything else is just like a passive kind of dream and things going on. So, no matter what we do, and this is the other thing that this to keep in mind, is that we may have committed hundreds of sins. We may have been the worst person in the world. Within the human level, kind of the upset, we have to then struggle. We have all the bad karma we accumulated, all the kind of the guilt and everything we do. But we decide, "Oh no, I want to be better," and so we start trying to be better, trying to reform, trying to get over our vices. It's a long, kind of hard slog, hard struggle. But the minute a person wakes up to the awareness of his real self, of who he is, that's all gone. all the sins, everything else, it's all gone. Because it was never real to begin with. It was just he was deluded, he was sleeping, dreaming he was a sinner, and now he wakes up and it's all gone. And so we usually often have the idea of being religious is kind of a slow progress. It's getting better and better and better. But when you think of it in terms of kind of realization, it's more a matter of waking up. Within a dream, you can have a very good dream or you can have a really bad dream. And somehow the bad dream may turn good or vice versa, but then when you wake up, the dream's gone. It no longer applies to you at all, and you're in a whole different reality. So I think within the dream of this universal existence, we're all kind of going our ups and downs and good and bad and so forth. But when a person realizes the truth, realizes who he actually is, what his real self is, then it's like you wake up from the dream. In our practices, meditation, it may be difficult. I mean, we have to struggle with it and practice discipline and things like that, and try to develop concentration and so forth, and all that's necessary. But when a person does attain realization, then you don't have to struggle to do it anymore. It's just, it's there. It's who you're awake, and there's no longer struggling to keep a spiritual focus or something. It is now. It's just what you are. And once a person becomes established in that, then he's always in that state. Even though different experiences come, and this is what the Upanishad said, that in truth, you're the Sakshi, you're the witness, you're totally unaffected by any kind of experiences that come. And so a realized soul is always in the awareness that this is what I am. I'm Atman and I'm just a Sakshi. I'm just witnessing what's going on, and it doesn't have any effect on me at all. And so he's maybe in the midst of very great difficulties or in a very happy situation, but it doesn't affect him or make him lose the awareness that actually I'm not in this at all. I'm in God. I'm in Brahman. So it is the interesting point here is that we're already immortal. Everything they talk about here, we already have. It's not that we are going to be promoted to a new status. We are already Brahman and therefore immortal. Somehow or other we do not know it. There's a sort of veil that conceals our real nature. The task is to remove this veil. So all of spiritual life is not trying to get on God's good side or please Him or hope. He's really removing the obstacles that prevent the grace of God from coming. The grace of God isn't something that He arbitrarily bestows on one person and not on another. It's always there. Like the sun is always shining, but if the clouds are there, you don't see it, and you're in gloom. And so all of our efforts in spiritual are really just to remove the barriers so that which is already there, which is already real, that which we truly are, that can become, we can become aware of. And then he said, that the wise see their own self everywhere. Bhuteshu, bhuteshu, in all things and beings, men, women, and animals. When one sees all beings in oneself, and oneself in all beings, in other words, when one realizes the unity of existence, one cannot bear any ill feeling towards anyone. And he told about Ramatirtha, who used to address the audience in his lectures as myself and ladies and gentlemen present. Ramatirtha, he was one of the first ones to come to America in the very early 1900s. But he had been a professor of mathematics at a university up in kind of northwestern India, like Kashmir or somewhere, but he was a professor of mathematics there. He said that Swami Vivekananda, he gave a talk there. And so Ramatirtha, his job, he was supposed to give Swami Vivekananda a watch, after the talk. But then Swami Vivekananda gave the watch back to him and said, I will enjoy it through you. And then he got the inspiration, became realized, and he came to America back in very like 1908 or something like that, very early days, and was one of the very first teachers of Vedanta here. But he had that attitude that I'm in everybody. And actually, when he was at the very end of his life, he was back in India, near the Ganges, around Rishikesh. But he wrote a little poem. I had it off, and now I'm off. And he went and he just drowned himself in the Triveni, which is, this is monks do this, like Swami Damodar, and that. When they reach full realization, the bodies, it served their purpose. And so sometimes they'll just kind of discard it in that way. But, so he was one of the pioneers of Vedanta here in America. And this is the Vedantic knowledge. And what they're trying to, on the one side, for the human level, we can be a very good person. We can be very loving, unselfish, caring, helpful in every way. But still, it's just one person doing some good to another person within the limits of our power, of our understanding, and so forth. But the realized soul, the higher ideal, is that to realize that myself and yourself, there's no difference. There's only one self there. When a person realizes that, then instead of expressing his own understanding of goodness or love or so on, he's now operating out of that one self and seeing that one self, and then everything else then flows out of that. So the idea is that myself, the same self, is everywhere. The speaker and the audience are both the same self. The self is speaking to the self. Only the names and forms vary, that is all. This sameness, this unity of existence is what we have to realize. We are all one. The difference is merely in the degree of manifestation. And this is a Vedantic knowledge. Like I said, as a good person, you can be very loving and unselfish and so on, and you can go to heaven. You can go to a very nice realm and so forth. But when you become one with all of existence, when you realize that what I'm calling me and separating out from things, that actually is behind that, the reality of that is actually the one, then it becomes a much different thing, a much higher thing. Okay, so any questions then? So let me see, so tomorrow, Swami Yashwananda, he's going to do his talk over at Hindu Temple in India Eternal at I think 11:30. Then we'll have Shivanam here. Later on we have a board meeting too, also tomorrow at 4. And I think you know that the RT now has changed back to 6 o'clock instead of 7 now. And Sunday, Swami will do his regular talk. And then that's about it for things coming up, I think. Okay. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityunam Amritam Gamaya Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace.